ready to go with floor action for the next 2 weeks. What we've been working on is trying to understand what priority bills we have left, and we'll try to actually move many of those next week rather than wait till cutoff time when things get pretty intense. So we have a couple of those left. We're going to move the House Homeowner Bill Rights Bill and the Payday Lending Bill, for example, a couple of consumer protection issues that we're still working on. And other than that, I'm here to answer your questions.
Are my taxes going up? Oh wait, I don't have one yet. Are you imposing an income tax?
Well, I don't want to presume anything about your circumstances, but you are a journalist.
Four figures to the left of a decimal point.
We are talking about, if the cuts go too deep, what kind of remedies should we be thinking about. And Senate Democrats believe that we need to be very aware that our tax system is unfair, and middle-class families are already pretty hard hit. Low-income families are very hard hit, and those are the same families that are going to be negatively affected by these very deep budget cuts. So those are the discussions that are taking place. And with respect to discussions around an income tax, it's an income tax on very high income individuals, millionaires or half millionaires. And that would mean that 19 out of 20 people in Washington State would not be affected at all, except that we might be able to address some of these very difficult budget cuts that are going to fill up the classrooms and lower health care insurance for people.
So the bill that's been introduced, could that be the vehicle? Or, because it sounds like it has a lot of the same framework of what you're talking about.
Senator Colwell's bill was coincidental. We were having discussions and she dropped her bill around the same time I did my blog post. But there is no discussion of any particular vehicle right now.
But the problem, it seems, would be that anything you did would not solve the imminent crisis. And so I'm curious to know just if your thinking is shifting a little bit to thinking maybe we can live with the budget we have, and that it's more important to do a long-term structural change that wouldn't bail you out today, but could, on a long-term basis, maybe.
Well, we've produced these budgets, and they are difficult but balanced, responsible budgets, and we assume that that's what we will pass. And at the earliest, given that we would be taking anything to a vote of the people, that would be in November, and the revenue would flow in even after that. And so no, in the very short term, immediate, the situation we have is to put forward these difficult budget cuts.
I'm curious about the sort of the political strategy. You did a sort of a Facebook post a couple months ago saying no all cuts budget. Then you were kind of quiet about it, and then you've come out with a blog post. So, I mean, it doesn't seem, and I'm not trying to be derisive, but it doesn't seem like a serious. I mean, are there real discussions with the governor? I don't know what the question is. I'm confused about the politics of it. It seems a little odd that you kind of float these things on blogs and Facebook posts, and are there real discussions with the governor? I mean, it seems like you've been sending messages all session, kind of where you are. Why now, and why on a blog, I guess is the question. Why wasn't this sort of from the top of the session, hey, we're thinking about taxing?
Well, I think we made it clear all along that our job is to put forward a budget that is balanced. So with respect to any statement of mine that an all cuts budget goes too far, I've said that from the beginning when I saw the governor's initial budget, and I still believe that. However, it's our responsibility to put that forward, and we don't have options within the legislative session to really mitigate that. It's pretty clear if the House Republicans don't want to increase a telephone tax by 25 cents a month to support 911 service, that we're not going to be going down a 2/3 road with respect to revenue. And so I'm not sure if that answers your question or not, but I think there's been a pretty
I could ask it better. Is
clear
that,
timeline. We need to put the budget together, and that's what we've done, and now we go from here.
I guess the question is, how serious is the governor going to take this if you're doing it on a blog post and she's the one who's going to have to veto it, sign off on it, deal with it, and if you're not kind of, is there an engagement process with her that's more politically correct? I don't know, politically responsible? I don't know what the word is.
Well, if we put a proposal forward in the legislature, it won't go to the governor, it will go to the people.
Right.
So that's who the dialogue is with.
Got it.
Is with the public. And I'm looking forward to discussing if something emerges from the Senate or from the Senate and House together. We'll be looking forward to working with the governor on that. And we have had conversations about a variety of topics over the course of the session, but not the budget as much.
If you did this, would there be offsets for like sales tax, property tax? Would you have some kind of sweetener in there for taxpayers?
Well, as I said, most taxpayers, the vast majority of taxpayers, would not be affected by a tax on high-income individuals.
I could see a situation where we might have an incentive for folks to go for it. So, I mean, is there any discussions about doing something like that?
If you were to start from scratch and do a restructure of the Washington state tax structure, you know, you could come up with a pretty creative plan where you would probably lower the state portion of the property tax and or sales taxes, and show the trade-off there with an overall more fair tax system. But I don't think we are in a place right now where we're going to do a complete overhaul of the Washington state tax system.
So you're being pretty targeted with this.
It would be very targeted. And as I pointed out, we have been making fiscal modifications to our system that were recommended in the Gates Commission report, such as the rainy day fund was the key thing that was recommended in that report.
So just to be clear, this would be an additional stream of revenue as opposed to supplanting existing revenue?
Yes, it would be.
So how do we make it worth it, though, because there are so few people that are affected? That 1% under the Coal Wells bill doesn't seem like it would do the trick. So what are the percentages that are being tossed out there within the caucus of something that could make any sort of difference?
Well, we don't have, like I said, she introduced her bill. We've had discussions among Senate Democrats about, here we are, the cuts are too deep. We are really reeling from the recognition of what this means for teachers being laid off and students not getting into the University of Washington, and elders who have these adult health services who are potentially losing those services, maybe losing the transportation to get to those services. And that's been the nature of the discussion. And in addition to that, many people have said, generally in situations like this, you might turn to something like a sales tax, but the awareness of how unfair our tax structure already is turns us to the conclusion that we want to talk about more fairness in the system. And I guess what I think about is when President Obama ran on this, essentially a very similar platform. He said it's time for wealthy people in America to pay their fair share. He laid out a plan and said if you make under $250,000, you won't pay more under any plan I have. And this is quite similar. And we don't want people who are middle class families or struggling even more than that to have to pay more taxes.
Given just what you're talking about and the fact that if there's any time in history, perhaps since the Great Depression, where people are angry at the wealthy, is that part of your thinking that this may provide a window of opportunity to do something like this?
I'm not motivated by any kind of anger personally, although I think there is anger about bailouts and bonuses and certain things that seem to go to those who might have been part of creating the financial problems that we're
Well, let me-
experiencing.